All right. College football. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, the ugly.
But first, let's talk about what's amazing things that are going on with our promo. Um, we are really having some excellent athletes come on board and for some really long-term promotion. And I don't know if you've seen some of the stuff that I've been churning out some of the guys lately, but it's been really good. They've getting me some good stuff. They're getting me obviously we're getting starting to get the films from guys in their first 4 or 5 games, which is exactly what we need, right? And so players out there, myfootballcamps.com/D1. It's important to start getting your name out there. Start if you already have some good film. Let us get the opportunity to really help promote you. It's really when I explain to people, both of us do a video for $199. People are like, wait a minute, you each do a video? I said, yeah, we each do a video. And then we do this 6 months. It's each of us doing a video each month, right? Which is like, if you were to just to put it in perspective, if you were to call up Mike or to call up me and say, hey, listen, I need you to put a highlight tape for me together, right? And put the highlight tape together. Um, Take whatever clips I have, go in the huddle, do all that, and put the music to it and all that kind of stuff. That would cost you a minimum of $500. Okay, so the promo for what you're actually getting, and the reason why I bring this up today is because sometimes people are, I say, a penny wise, pound foolish, and I understand it's money, and you're in the world of sports where everybody's grabbing money all over the place. We get it. We understand. What you're getting is something that you cannot get anywhere else. And I've seen other groups try to copy it now because that's how good it is. Other groups try to copy what we're doing. But let's put it mildly here. Mike Farrell, the godfather of recruiting, and I don't take it lightly when I say that. Over close to 1 million followers just in his group of social media platforms. I'm over 1 point whatever million. Recruiting is about the connections you have and the ability for people to validate what someone says. You can go get an intern to go put a video together of you, and it might look nice. It's probably going to not look as nice as ours, but look nice, okay? And it goes to the land of crickets. And the land of crickets means just like all your huddle links that go to the land of crickets. Oh, I posted a huddle link. Great. No one saw it. Okay. I sent the huddle link to this guy or that guy. Great. No one saw it. myfootballcamps.com/D1. I'm telling you, me and Mike not only do the videos for you, but we take care of our guys. Okay. And if one day there's lady football players down the line, then we take care of the ladies.
Sure.
We take care of our guys. Okay. And we are now not just putting out the videos, which we do on all our platforms, but I'll give you an idea of how the impact of myself and Mike. Mike, every once in a while, have one of these YouTube things that'll go viral or Twitter that'll go viral and it'll go to the millions, literally to the millions. Every once in a while, like I posted a funny clip on not my personal TikTok, on my and you see sports TikTok, which is like I call it my bar stooly kind of TikTok, right, for me. And I posted a thing about Oklahoma, how basically the wheels are falling off with the schooner falling over, and I have related it to over 250,000 views in one day. Okay, the power of someone who has impact and respect, myself and Mike, goes a long way. And that's where you can get when you get this. The coaches respect our opinions, respect what we understand about football. Mike's the number one analyst in the world in football. Okay, I don't care what anybody else might think. This is validated over time. And in the space of combines and showcases, And as a coach, there is no one that touches me. And I don't ever get on my high horse, but I'm telling you, there's not one person remotely close that has the following that I have. So, and within that space that I have, okay. And you can go validate it all. Go look at the Twitters. Go look at who's following us. Go look at it. So that's my myfootballcamps.com/D1. Feel for say. I'll let Mike go with his much nicer, kinder version.
No, I like it. I like it. No, listen, you're fired up, and you should be. And I know what's ticked you off, and it's fine. And again, back to the pretty videos and interns and all that stuff. Our stuff is not pretty. You're sending us your videos. We're putting text over it. Coach puts his face in it. I don't put mine. My voice is on it. Nothing about pretty is going to get you a scholarship or get you any interest whatsoever. Doesn't matter. It could be the prettiest thing. And this is the point, when back in the day when I used to get VHS tapes in the mail, and my mailman hated me, the most attractive packages that arrived were the crappiest kids. And you're not fooling anybody with any sort of pomp and circumstance or some sort of lightning bolt over you in your highlight film or what it doesn't matter if you blow yourself up to twice the size or whatever garbage you want to do to your film or somebody can do to make it look great, short of speeding it up, which everybody knows when things are sped up. It's straightforward. It's very, very, I think, lunch pail approach, old school approach. This is the film. This is what we like about the film. This is why you should check this particular person out. And they will look at it. They just will. They're not going to reach out to me or you and say, oh my God, I saw this kid I love. They're going to reach out to you, or they're going to follow you, or they're going to show interest in you. And if they don't have interest in you, then they won't. But I can tell you this. I mean, there's nobody else out there who's DMing on a daily basis with Power 5, head coaches and recruiting coordinators and offensive and defensive coordinators and guys who are mentioned for new jobs and things like that. I mean, I'm not friends with anybody, but I know them all and they all know me and they respect me. Some of them a little bit sensitive, probably think that I'm a little bit of a loudmouth, but they do respect me. And that just comes with time. I mean, all this gray, having been doing this for 25 years, they're going to pay attention to what I say. So you mentioned people cropping up copycats of this program and all that stuff. That's the highest form of flattery, by the way. When I started doing the 3-point stance back on Rivals, I don't know, maybe 12 years ago, I think it was 24/7 cropped up the cover 3, which is the same thing. It was the same exact thing. When we started doing I did a Farrell forecast back in the 2000s, and then the crystal ball emerged in 2010. Like, imitation is flattery, but it doesn't mean it's going to be, better or it's going to get you anywhere. So I say everybody crop up their own little Division I profile thing if you want to. Flood the market with garbage, but, just know who it's going to get to and just look at the followers. And then determine based on there. We had some new people sign up, the Enlows in New Jersey. I'm excited about helping them. Bryce is the older one, and we've got less time to work on him, and that kind of excites me. And then his younger brother, we have more time. Andy Jaffe, defensive back from Florida, legit Power 5 offers already, but not where he wants to be in recruiting. And his dad sent me a list of schools that he's kind of interested in hearing from. I can guarantee you he's going to hear from all of those schools because he sent me that list. Now, if you're a kid who signs up for our program and you want to hear from Alabama, I can't make that happen. But most of these parents are extremely knowledgeable as to the level of, what they want for their kids, whether it's academics, whether it's, they know their kid's a mid-major Power 5 kid or a Group of 5 kid or whatever. That's just the way it is. Jeremiah Kruger, we did last week. He, to me, is a Group of 5 talent. He's a tight end who can block, who can catch, but doesn't get targeted very much. And the funny part about it is J.J. Cole, the 4-star quarterback, is his quarterback, but they just don't throw to the tight end in that offense very much. But he's got some receptions, he's got some blocking film, put that out there. That kind of blew up last week.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and we're not going to say anything we don't believe in. Like, I'll tell him, I'll tell him why, I think he's Group of 5 and not Power 5. I'll tell a kid who's FCS why I think he's FCS and not Power 5 and all that stuff. But again, you're going to get noticed. You're going to get attention. People are going to look at you a little bit differently because they're coming through our filter. So I don't really mind the competition cropping up these packages. And the funny part about it is, the one that I'm talking about, and I won't mention their name, has so many things. Oh, you can get this profile on our website. You get this ranking. You can get this, this, and this. I had a player earlier this year who did a one-time promo with us who had a 3-star ranking on 5 different websites. I had never heard of any of them. And he just kept asking me, have you heard of this one? Never. And if I haven't heard of him, nobody on earth has heard of him. So you can get a 3-star ranking someplace. I could sell you a 3-star ranking on MikeFarrellSports.com right now if you want to pay me $5,000. I will. I don't care. But it's not going to do you any good. No one's going to give a crap.
Right.
What they want is they want to see your film and they want to be intrigued by it. 1 minute of film is not going to get you a scholarship. What it's going to do is it's going to make them go into and look more and more of your film, then maybe contact your coach or follow you and ask you for additional film and this, that, and the other. That's how it works. So there's no magic recipe here. Unless you do want to pay me for a 3-star ranking, $5,000 DM me, I'll do it.
Can I get a commission on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything I get, you get. So if somebody does hit me up on that, what are we at? We're 50-50, right?
Yeah.
I should sell stars. I really thought about it the other day, but it's so unethical.
It is. Well, I'll tell you. So, and I want to bring this up before I forget, because I will forget it. First off, I just did Bryce's first video. I just started posting. I didn't post everywhere yet, but I just started posting. And he's super physical. Man, I'm seeing like the updated clips and stuff, how physical he is. And then Chase, I mean, he's running for like acres every week. He's only a sophomore. He's running for acres every week. So he's interesting. I'm curious if he ever. I say the school he goes to is definitely they have to really make sure they're nice to him, that the school that his brother's at doesn't go and steal the younger one, because he's so good.
It's the way it is. That's life.
It is. That's the way it is. But because he's tearing it up. But what I want to say is, so those of you who are a part of what we're doing, we try to figure out other things for you too. So like one of the nice things about the promos is, there are other events you may want to go to that I run. Like me and Mike have a camp, a showcase that we're going to be running in January. You get on board with us in the promos. We're going to take care of you in these different things, right? So, and that's, I think Mike's, I'm just saying this right now, but like, I think Mike's in agreement on it. Like guys who come on board to our 6-month program, we're going to try and put you into our other programs to be able to help you in as many ways we can. And that's, I think, the difference, right? Like, because of the stuff that I do and Mike does, it's so broad and reaches so much. Like I have camps and stuff. We can take care of you in other ways to be able to continue to get exposure beyond, obviously, what we're doing with the videos and retweeting and all that kind of stuff. So that's one of the really nice things. You have us as your partner in this process. You get the video. Everybody knows what the video is. It looks great. It reaches the coaches that we put it in front of. Those things are awesome, but you also have us as a partner. And I've had people DM me and reach out to me and ask a question. I'm glad to answer a question or two. If Mike is not able to answer a question on something because maybe he's busy, he's got a lot of interviews or something, he'll always forward it over to me. I'm always glad to answer it, and that's kind of part of the process. And you're not getting charged for that. I mean, we're charging for the stuff that we have to physically go and do. But as far as that, like, we're glad to answer a question for you quickly and get you in the right direction.
And get you the right thing too. So, I put up a video last week of Jaffe. It wasn't, exactly what they were hoping for, and they wanted something different. Boom, gone, something different today. Like, we're not set in our ways. If you want to showcase something, Hartman wants to showcase his ability to play, tackle, guard, center. Okay, I'll do that. I'm not going to tell you, well, no, you should focus on guard and forget about tackle and all this other stuff. I'm going to showcase what you want. And if it's not to your satisfaction, I'm going to fix it and make sure it is what you want. And, I didn't think getting into this, there were many options I had, moving forward, after I decided to go independent. And this was one of them. And I talked very early about it. I didn't think I would like it. Just being honest, because I was peppered with emails from people over 24 years, 25 years of, look at this, my kid's this, that, blah, blah, blah. And I was also dealing with the massive egos of, parents and kids who are 4 and 5 stars and all that delicate, maneuvering that you have to do to get an interview and make sure. And then the inviting to this all-star game versus this all-star game, getting them to camps, getting them to 5-star challenges, on and on and on. I just didn't think I would like this level of it. But it's really refreshing to me because I do like it. And it's a surprise to me that I do. Because, listen, I'm the guy who used to break Jadeveon Clowney's, when he went past signing day, when Cyrus Quandrell went past signing day, when Terrell Pryor went past signing day, when Byron Cowart had 2 letters of intent that he signed, one for Florida, one for Auburn on signing day, I was the guy that they were talking to, Bryce Brown, and breaking massive stories with high-level 5-star kids who are now either off in the NFL or whatever. And that was fun and exciting. But it got old, because it was just, and that doesn't mean, if a 5-star kid reaches out to me, Malachi Nelson, he's got a breaking story, I'm decommitting from USC, I'll take it. But it's really not, it's not as enjoyable as this, which people are going to say you're crazy. How on earth would you not rather cover Terrell Pryor, showing up at his press conference and announcing to everybody he's not making his decision because his dad wanted him to go to Penn State and he thought about Michigan because Rich Rodriguez was there and Ohio State was eventually the choice, but it was like a week after signing day. How is that high anywhere compared to a kid who's got, FCS offers trying to scrap his way to better offers? It's just different. I guess maybe I got tired of the superstars. And we talked about this, like everybody recruiting Arch Manning is ignoring every other quarterback. I talked to Rauner last week, Carson Rauner. There's a 2024 kid in Nebraska who's a quarterback as well, who's getting all the attention. I don't think he's better. I just don't. So it kind of makes me a little bit more motivated to get Rauner out there even more. Not that I want to discover him or claim any discovery. But there's something about it that I find extremely intriguing. And I didn't think I would. So you're going to get a partner is what you're going to get. Originally, I didn't think you would, but the first person, the second, I'm sorry, not the first, second person we got, and I won't name his name, I instantly became invested in their life and their future and what they were going to do. And when they go off to school, whether it's FCS or whatever, I'm going to be invested and interested in how they go. And I didn't think that would happen to me. So it has.
There is no doubt about it. It's great to see their progression. It's like they become one of your own guys, so you want to see them be able to go on to succeed.
It's kind of like coaching, right? It's a little like coaching.
Well, it is. Honestly, there's a similarity to it. Yes.
And I never coached. So this is new to me. And this is kind of the feeling you get of when you get a kid that comes through your camps or through your high school or whatever and turns out to be something. We've had kids come through camps that were nothing and turned into something. I mentioned Dwayne Haskins, the late Dwayne Haskins. We mentioned Sharif Floyd. Mentioned a bunch of them. Christian Wilkins came through the camp process and went on to big things. But there wasn't a feeling of ownership of that because I was working for a massive vehicle run by $1 billion corporate company that all they cared about was money. And it may look stupid because this is something we're charging for, but it's honestly, I'm charging directly for it, but it's less about money now. I can't explain it. It's just weird.
It's true, and a great transition into the wild world of college football, not just recruiting, but coaching changes. And I know you have some fantastic insight as to the wild world that's going on right now.
Yeah. So, and this is the other thing. I kind of had an epiphany the other day. So I run a website, MikeFarrellSports.com. And you know, it's small. Not a lot of people know about it. There's a lot of people who still think I'm with, you know, my previous company and all this stuff. And it's in its infancy, and we signed a deal with Sports Illustrated, and that's going to help us. And we're going to grow as SEO catches up to us. And, you know, I've got a large staff of writers. And I realized last night that we were putting up so much content. I think we put up over 100 articles last week alone, that I was flooding the market with too much. And so what I'm focusing on now this week in a revamp of my own strategy is quality content. And one of the things I'm going to be writing over the next couple of days is about Paul Chryst being fired at Wisconsin, because we knew Scott Frost was going to be fired. We knew, I mean, you lose to Georgia Southern and you've been horrible for years. You're going to get fired. We knew Herm Edwards would eventually get fired because of the NCAA stuff more so than anything else. We knew Jeff Collins wasn't going to last at Georgia Tech, and I knew Carl Durrell, who was fired this weekend at Colorado, he was going to be gone. I had no idea Paul Chryst was going to get fired. None. And this is a guy who's a Wisconsin grad, okay? He was 67-26 as Wisconsin head coach. He won the Big Ten West twice. He tied for it another time. 43-18 in Big Ten play. 9 or more games, he won 5 out of 6 full seasons. I don't count the COVID year. He brought his team to a New Year's Six bowl 3 times in 7 seasons, and they fired him. And he's 2-3 this season. They just lost to Illinois at home. Embarrassing. They didn't run the ball. Player development's been a bit of an issue lately, but the reason they did it was because Jim Leonard is their defensive coordinator, and everybody who's firing other coaches is looking at Jim Leonard as a candidate, and Wisconsin knew that they were going to lose him if they didn't promote him. He's the interim coach. He's going to be their head coach. But to me, it's absolutely insane where we are in college football these days with the TV money, that a guy who has that record that I just spoke of, who's been very, very successful, who won 9 games last season, is fired midway through the football season after a 2-3 start, who's an alum, a grad, who got his first head coaching job at Pitt, lasted 2 seasons there. The second Wisconsin knocked on his door after Brett Bielema left, he dropped everything to go back to his alma mater and coach there. And he's been a good person in the community. He's a good person overall. And they just dumped him like that. And they renegotiated his buyout, so it's less. And I think he had part of that because he loves Wisconsin so much. He didn't want to hamper them. But this is getting out of hand. It's too much. I mean, so I look at this as a potential Bo Pelini firing. Paul Chryst is not Bo Pelini. Bo Pelini was a jerk. Paul Chryst, very nice man. But Bo Pelini won 9 games every year, pretty much, for Nebraska. Yep, and it wasn't enough for them, and they got rid of him. And since then, Callahan, Riley, Frost have all sucked. And Nebraska is now a joke in the world of football. And so it's be careful what you wish for, because Wisconsin could head that way pretty quickly. Because
they were that way. They were that way before Barry Alvarez, if you remember.
Oh, yeah. And
before Barry took over, and Barry, I mean, basically Barry's is he? I don't know if is he still the AD too? Or is he more like emeritus? Like
he's an emeritus. He's like he's like, you know, the head honcho consultant of all consultants. He's the one who kind of handpicked Chryst to replace Bielema, and he handpicked Bielema to replace himself. So he's there, but he's not technically the athletic director. But you're right. I mean, they used to suck, and then they became good with Barry Alvarez, and now
he architected everything.
Yeah, and the reason I mention this is Jim Leonard is a great assistant coach. He was a 10-year NFL guy.
Yep.
Good recruiter, very good defensive mind. The defense has been very good. But you don't know how he's going to be as head coach. You have no idea. And so the example I'm going to give in my article is Brent Venables, who is a tremendous defensive coordinator at Oklahoma, even better defensive coordinator at Clemson.
Yes.
Now he's got a head coaching job at Oklahoma. And guess what? Everybody who said, screw Lincoln Riley, we don't love Lincoln Riley. He left us at the altar and he's a jerk. We don't like him. Well, now they're worried out of their minds that they hired the wrong coach and they're not moving in the right direction because they got thumped, destroyed 55-24. 55, this is a defensive coach, by TCU a week after losing to Kansas State. And they're not a good program anymore. All of a sudden, I mean, it's 2 games, but people are worried about that. They're 3-2, and now they're worried, that we hired the wrong guy. So maybe Jim Leonard is Brent Venables. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you don't know these things, and I think one of the big issues with how they're choosing and getting rid of coaches is there's no formula used in determining. It's almost emotion based. It's like they're in a relationship with a crazy ex-girlfriend type thing, and that's what seems to happen over and over again. It's like somebody gets emotionally upset about the situation, and sometimes they're right. Sometimes you got to get rid of certain people, right? But a lot of times it's like a 50-50 thing. It's amazing. Like, I think about all this from a business standpoint, right? Like I've owned a business for a long time. If every decision I made was a 50-50 decision, I mean, I'd be out of business. You know what I mean? I mean, that's pretty. So it seems crazy because essentially these are businesses, right? These colleges now.
Yeah.
And their decisions are like 50-50 balls. I mean,
it's throw it up and see who catch it. And you don't know what you got till it's gone type of thing.
In business, if you're wrong 20% of the time, you're probably going out of business. Like, you got to really be right a lot more than you're wrong. You're going to make mistakes. But the fact that they can survive and be 50-50 ball, throwing 50-50 balls is crazy.
But they're being carried. Like, Wisconsin's a good program, right? And again, they won the Big Ten West twice. They would go to the Big Ten championship game and get thumped, and they never, really came close to making the playoff or anything like that. But the Nebraskas of the world, they're being carried by the Big Ten. They owe their paychecks to Ohio State and Penn State and Michigan and the programs that have actually been successful over the last decade that have carried them. So you can make mistake after mistake after mistake. Oh, we want this guy who coached the Raiders in the Super Bowl. Oh, he sucks. We want this guy who was a great coach at Oregon State because he's a nice guy. Oh, he sucks. We want Scott Frost. He was a former player. He's got to work out. Oh, he sucks. You can make mistake after mistake after mistake if you're in the right conference and other people are carrying you. But you also lose a lot of credibility. So now Nebraska fans who were so proud, those late 90s Nebraska teams and even in the early 2000s were just so dominant, so scary. Now, if you ask an average fan about Nebraska, they will laugh. And they say, delusional fan base who wants to get back to glory and never will. And that's embarrassing and it sucks. You got to be careful. Now, I'm not saying Pelini would still be there. He would have done something stupid to get fired because he was just a crazy person. But Paul Chryst, come on. What are we doing here? It's just a little nutty to me. So that was a surprise. And now, geez. Now anything can happen. Well, these are probably people. I don't know who the hell it is. Now anything can happen.
Well, I think Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M.
It could happen next week. Now, okay, like nothing is off the table now with Chryst. So Jimbo Fisher has an $85 million buyout, and everybody says, well, that's going to make them. They're not going to do anything with Jimbo Fisher. That's a lot of money. These boosters have so much money that it doesn't matter. Mel Tucker was given an $85 million guaranteed contract by the boosters at Michigan State because LSU wanted him as their coach. Guess who sucks now? Michigan State. I mean, they're really bad. They just got thumped by Maryland. They're not a good football program anymore. He had one good year. They're going to lose to Ohio State this weekend, probably by 50. they're 2-3. You gave him $85 million. Why? So you give Jimbo that big money and he sucks. He could be fired next week. It wouldn't surprise me.
And what's interesting, and there's places that they've been able to be patient just because they haven't been good for a while, like UCLA, and they've been patient with Kelly, and it's taken him much longer than he has when he was at Oregon. But now they're in the pretty good position. I think they're 5-0 now,
Yep.
and they're in a great position. So the thing is, like, if you pulled the plug last year on Brian Kelly, you never get to this point, right? If you Brian Kelly, I'm sorry,
Chip.
Chip Kelly, and Chip Kelly, you don't never get to this point. And and now the reason why I was getting messed up with Brian and Chip Kelly, because Brian Kelly, after week 1, they were like, "Oh, he doesn't know how to relate to Louisiana players," and he's reeled off 4 straight. He's reeled off 4 straight.
I said the same thing, and that's the reactionary world we live in. But I'm not also responsible for $1 million salaries and paying people buyouts and stuff. So thank God I'm not in charge, because I said that after week 1 that Brian Kelly wasn't a fit, and this is crazy. He's now, again, he could falter. It's ups and downs. But I think the program that I speak to being patient and the smartest, and it's not the Virginia Techs and Bobby Bowden's, Florida States of the world, back in the day. It's Kentucky. Okay, so Mark Stoops was 2-10 his first year, 5-7 his next 2 seasons. So that's a 12-24 record after 3 years. Today he would have been fired. You can't go 12-24 in your first 3 years in college football. He was 4-20 in the SEC. Then he went 7-6. Then he went 7-6 again. So after 7-6, if you give him that extra year, you might have fired him after that year too, just because of impatience. Then 10-3, 8-5, 2020, 5-6. COVID doesn't count. 10-3, 4-1. Now Kentucky's a real program and a consistent, contender, so to speak. In the East, obviously Georgia's the cream of the crop there. A consistent top 25 program. But had you fired him after 3 years, as anybody would have in this day and age, you would have set yourself back quite a bit. So patience sometimes is the thing, but nobody's patient. These boosters now are more involved than anything with NIL. They're just more involved.
Oh, they're way more. NIL brought them. Of course. They have businesses. Now,
right. They're determining who gets fired as a head coach.
Right. And plus, okay, so now with NIL, you brought up a great point. So now with NIL, okay, I'm a booster. Obviously, I can't hand him cash, but I get him to endorse whatever, XYZ car company. Okay. He endorses it. I'm now emotionally invested in that player, right? As an NIL person. I have John Smith player. I'm giving him $50,000. I'm emotionally invested in his success. He's not having as good a season as I would like. He's endorsing my business. Well, I really can't blame the kid per se. Who do I blame? The coach, right? Coach is not utilizing my quarterback that I'm endorsing the right way. And they're not giving him, they're not giving the QB $50,000. They're giving him $150,000, $250,000, right? So the coach is the problem, right? That's the problem. And not only is this guy I'm giving NIL to, is that affecting the player directly who I'm sponsoring, but now he's talking about my brand, my company. So now I'm associated with this university, this player, and they're losing. Does anyone want to be associated with a brand that's a loser? No. That's a problem with NIL that no one would have ever thought could be an issue. I give money, your team loses, my quarterback I'm paying to endorse my brand is losing. I have a car dealership. Do you want to shake hands with a quarterback that's won 2 games out of 11?
No. And the thing about it too is, like, as you mentioned, so Wisconsin is known as a rushing program,
right?
Okay? One of those guys that's got one of the bigger NIL deals is Braylon Allen, the great running back for Wisconsin.
Yep.
And Graham Mertz was one of the first guys to sign an NIL deal last summer as well. Graham Mertz has been horrible. He's not developed. Braylon Allen he had 2 yards. He had 8 carries for 2 yards in that game. That alone, if you look at that number, it could get you fired because Braylon Allen's a big name. This is our star running back. He's a sophomore. He was in the Heisman discussion at the beginning of the season. 8 carries, 2 yards, unacceptable. You're fired. But that doesn't mean the next guy up is going to be better.
Right.
So, listen, it's great for me as a pseudo journalist to write about all these hirings and job openings. That's what people click on. That's what people like to read about. And I'm going to write about Paul Chryst, and I'll write about all the job opening situations. And, guess who Jimbo's playing this weekend? Alabama. Guess who he doesn't like? Nick Saban. Guess who doesn't like him? Nick Saban. Now Saban lost his quarterback. Bryce Young got hurt. But if Saban has any opportunity to run that score up on Jimbo, he's going to do it. And he's going to embarrass him because, A, he lost last year to him.
Yep.
B, they had a spat this year about NIL. C, they recruit against each other. And D, at one point in time, Jimbo was making more money than Nick Saban. And it's at home. So he's going to try to kill him. They're favored by 24. They could win by 40, and you just don't know. They lose. They drop a 50-10 loss to Alabama. Jimbo Fisher could be fired. Now that Paul Chryst has been fired, anybody could be fired. So, I don't want to harp on it too much, but it's the new world of college football, and it's intriguing to me. But I just think we're getting a little nutty here. If a fit isn't a fit, Carl Durrell wasn't a fit. It didn't work. It was a bad hire to start with, kind of a panic move after Mel Tucker left. That's great. Jeff Collins had his opportunities. Scott Frost had his opportunities. That's all good. Herm screwed up off the field, but Paul Chryst did nothing. Did nothing wrong. They're 2-3. So what? But this is the world we live in now, and I think it's just going to get nuttier and nuttier. So Jim Leonard will be the new coach at Wisconsin. He's the interim now. He will be. They'll do a search. There'll be some guys interested in this job. Dave Aranda was a defense coordinator at Wisconsin. He might be interested. So they're not going to just do it. They're going to do a search. But I think Leonard will be the guy.
From a slightly different though, because you brought up Alabama, Texas A&M. The running back from Alabama, Gibbs. Is it Gibbs?
Yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs.
Man, is he good.
Fast.
He is fast. I mean, he breaks in the open. I think you're 100% right, especially if Bryce Young is not able to go. You're going to see him put on a show. I mean,
dude, their quarterback, man, Jalen Milroe, is a specimen.
Is he?
The backup quarterback. He is just he's a Derrick Henry looking dude.
Really?
He's a beast, and he's fast as can be. He would be starting for any other team not any other, but most other teams in the Power 5. Yeah, he's 6'2", 212, so he's not as tall as Henry, but he's jacked, and he's fast. He could be faster than Derrick. They say, and I don't know if I believe this, they say he's the fastest player on the team, timed. So it's going to be a different offense that goes out there. He's a good passer and all that, but he's not as fluid as Bryce Young and not as accomplished passer. But the running ability of him just sets a different thing. Bryce Young could run, didn't want to. This dude can run and wants to. So there's no drop off for Alabama whatsoever. They're going to kill him. And I think Jimbo could be in trouble if they do, because they lost to Mississippi State. They beat a Miami team that we now know is bad. They're really not impressing anybody. They beat Arkansas. They got lucky to do it. Took a long fumble recovery and a missed, field goal. They're just not a good program. And people are going to be like, where's my return on investment for the $100+ million I paid this guy? Let's buy him out. I know it's guaranteed money, but let's come up with $85 million, all us rich Texas oil people, and let's get rid of them. And that could happen as early as next week. I don't think it will, but I'll tell you, when I got the Carl Durrell notification that he was fired, it was like, okay. Then I got Paul Chryst, and I was like, I had to look twice. I'm like, wait a minute. How's this possible? but it is.
What about? Did you watch the Missouri Georgia game at all?
I did. I liked the way Missouri played, man. Defensively, they just wore
Defensively,
out. They
yeah,
wore
we're
out.
out. Right.
Yeah, good
They
game
have
though.
some defensive players. I mean, they have
They-
guys coming off the edge that caused havoc for them.
When I have to look dudes up, okay, and refresh my memory as to where this dude stands in the pecking order of the NFL draft, that's when you know you're impressing me. And they had a couple dudes. I'm trying to remember the one guy's name. I mean, because I knew about
The ends
Jeffco.
and the linebacker, the outside
It's
linebacker.
Isaiah McGuire. Isaiah McGuire was the guy, number 9.
Yes.
6'4", 275 out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. He only had 2 tackles in the game. He's only got 7 tackles this season, solo tackles and 2 sacks. But he was so disruptive. He's so long. He's not super explosive, but so long and so disruptive that I looked him up, and I know he's a fringe 7th, 8th, 6th, 7th rounder. I think he really raised his stock. But I was impressed with the way they played.
Their DBs were tough, played in man-to-man 3/4 of the time. I mean, I also thought there was a couple of calls there that I see a lot of these things go a lot of times in college football, and there were a couple of calls I'm like, wow. I'm like, Missouri got zinged on some stuff,
Yeah.
that now they shot themselves in the foot in the first half. They were on the 1-yard line of almost and they went off sides, and I actually thought it was a coaching mistake. They like to, as soon as they get a big play, Missouri likes to get right on the ball and like run another play, right? But at the end of the half, they're at the 1-yard line. They got right in the ball, tried to run a play, so they couldn't substitute. So Georgia couldn't bring in the huge guys or whatever to stop them running it in. And they went off sides. And then they didn't score a touchdown. They had to kick a field goal. And instead of it being 20-3, it was 16-3. And Georgia got life after that. I think that was a huge, huge play. But what was interesting. I mean, I thought it was a mistake. Like college coaches, obviously these guys are some of them are super smart. Some of them think they're smart, but they kind of, if they just took their time and came up, they had 4 downs, right? They would have 4 downs instead of trying to rush and get right in. They basically would have had to put Georgia in a situation where they would have had to throw every down. And from what I saw for the first time, I thought Stetson Bennett actually came through in the clutch. Okay, so he deserves credit for that. But when you got pressure on him because of his height and he's fast, but he's not like he's not like Cam Newton or any of those guys. Like he can run, but he's not really like a tremendous threat to go 50 yards down the field.
Right.
Once they were getting after him and hitting him, like that's the formula. If you got guys like Missouri, and I'm sure there are other teams that have guys like Missouri. I don't know if they're as good or not, but they have guys that can do those things. That's how you're going to have to get after Georgia. You got to hit him because he can't get to his receivers. He was having a hard time getting to Brock Bowers. He was having a hard time, and he had guys. Like he had to go to the gigantic tight end. What's that guy's name?
Darnell Washington, man.
That guy that's what guy you were talking about, right? I was
LeBron James.
As fast as he did.
He's LeBron James size. He is 6'6", and LeBron's 265.
Right.
He's that's when we saw him in high school, we were like, that's LeBron James playing football. He is a absolute monster beast. There was one play where he caught it, and he just the D-back came up to hit him, and the D-back was not a small kid, and he just bounced off of him like 5 yards back. He's a monster. It's amazing with all those offensive weapons that they struggled. It's a credit to Mizzou.
Yes.
They've got some players on that team. And after they lost that horrible game against Auburn, where it was just like, their field goal kicker missed a chip shot to win the game. And then they had the reaching over the goal line fumble and just a lot of dumb boneheaded things to lose a game against not a very good Auburn team. I questioned whether this team would go in the tank and Eli Drinkwitz would lose them. He didn't lose them. They played hard. And to speak to your point of hitting, man, they hit. That defense loves to hit. And that's, it might be, I mean, this is a film that a lot of people playing Georgia are going to watch. And they're going to say, okay, they kind of figured something out here, and we got to do the same thing and just, punish them. Because they suddenly, Georgia was the number one team in the country, and you couldn't really find any weaknesses. Now I see weaknesses. I see wide receivers that don't get tremendous separation. Whereas before I was like, well, they're deep at wide receiver. They got all these tight ends. Bennett's effective. Stetson Bennett is little. We know this, but he doesn't play little until you hit him and hit him over and over again. And he's wincing and holding every, part of his body. Then he becomes little again. So I think this is a good blueprint for teams to use against Georgia, and they exposed a lot of weaknesses.
Yeah, I think you get turnovers, you get all kinds of opportunities from it. And I think you're dead on. Stetson Bennett, because he is a clutch guy and all those things. If you don't hit him, he's very poised. He's just going to pick you apart. But if you come after him, he's still a small guy. A small guy is a small guy. It doesn't matter. Like, he weighs what he weighs. It doesn't matter how great he plays when you're not him. But when you start to hit him, he still weighs XYZ, 185, whatever he weighs, 190. And that's, you're getting beat up over the course of a game. And that's going to weigh into, you might make a mistake. You might drop a ball. You maybe don't make as good a decision. I also think it's interesting because those two tight ends are, you talked about Darnell Washington. I didn't know anything about him until I watched this game. I almost think that those two guys, and they did it at the end of the game to win the game, ran behind them, put them both on one side. You know what I'm saying? Brock Bowers. Like, they were almost like they were your receivers. They were your tackles. They're going to have to, Georgia's going to have to use those two guys in every capacity. Wide receiver, fullback, as double wings, as like basically two extra tackles. You know what I mean? They have to use those guys in that capacity because literally those are the two best players on there. From what I saw, those are the two best players on their team, hands down.
Yeah. And, the Patriots won a Super Bowl that way with Gronk and Aaron Hernandez. And Todd Monken, the offense coordinator, is creative enough to make sure that they get the football. And I think Darnell Washington is going to be more and more a part of this offense. And he's also a very good blocker, too. And that kind of impressed me as well because everybody talks, and I was talking about Jeremiah Kruger earlier, everybody wants these flex tight ends. Everybody loves Brock Bowers, of course, because he's a freak athlete and he can line up a wide receiver or slot or whatever. But, man, the guys who can inline block, who also can, act as a sixth tackle or a sixth offensive lineman, a second tackle on that heavy side of the line, or, sit down in a zone and just box you out. The Michael Mayers, the Darnell Washingtons of the world. The NFL loves those guys. They absolutely love them. And people don't pay attention to how well, Gronk blocked or Travis Kelce can block, or even like Tony Gonzalez and some of those guys, George Kittle.
Mark Andrews.
Yeah, Mark Andrews. They're all good blockers. And there's no weakness there. Kyle Pitts was drafted as high as any tight end ever, and he really can't block that well. And he was sort of an exception to the rule because they kind of drafted him as a wide receiver type. But they want guys like Darnell Washington. When I was watching Darnell Washington play, and he's not a huge part of this offense yet, I was like, how do you pass on this kid in the second round? Maybe first you don't take him. But if he runs anywhere in the 4.7 range and he's 6'6" and he's 275 pounds, he's listed 6'7", 270, which is probably accurate. I could use him in 50 different ways to screw up a team at the college and the NFL level because there's nobody who can cover him and he can block like a tackle can. So you're going to see a lot more of Darnell Washington. And this was the big debate. So we had, Darnell Washington, was he going to be a 5-star? Was he going to be a 4-star? I saw him down at Under Armour the first week of practice. The first day of practice, he had no idea what he was doing. He ran every wrong route. He got yelled at. And then I thought, okay, he's going to quit. Like that's what kids do at all-star games. They get yelled at. They quit. they don't quit, but they come up with a hamstring, mail it in. And he did that for a day. And I'm like, oh, this kid's overrated. And then he came back. And I was like, wait a minute. And then he started learning the routes a little bit better. And he didn't move that fluidly. He still had a lot of, heavy footedness. But I was like, if this kid wants to be good, which I kind of just saw, he had a little poutiness and then he came back. There's no stopping him. So the want to was always a question. And now we're seeing that he really does want to, because I could see it in his blocking. And that's really when you can tell if a receiver or Keyshawn Butte is another example of that at LSU. That's a kid who doesn't want it. He's not being utilized well at LSU. Brian Kelly's turned him into one of the top 3 wide receivers in the nation to an afterthought, a complete afterthought. But it also shows in his attempts to block. It shows in his attempts to get involved in the offense. It shows he's kind of sitting out the season now, waiting for his NFL opportunity. And that is a huge red flag to me. So Darnell Washington has really proven to me that he's legit. And he's up there. He's up there when it comes to, tight ends that I would take in the late first round, early second round.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And that Georgia probably, I think the way they approached that game when it kind of hit the fan, they're like, whoa, okay. It's almost like everyone's found this out now. Okay, now let's start adjusting what we're doing, because we got away with it so far, and now we're not going to be able to get away with this anymore. We're going to have
talent does take over. I mean, that defense worked so hard to keep them off the scoreboard, and honestly, they just were worn out. You could tell they weren't flying to the football as well as they were, and it wasn't their fault. It wasn't a lack of effort. It's just they're outmanned, and eventually, that 4 quarters of effort, could fall apart in the last 7 minutes of the fourth quarter because you're working so hard, and the offense wasn't doing a lot to help them. So great effort by Missouri, near loss, but the best thing that could happen to Georgia as well. Great thing, because now they're not number 1 anymore. Now Kirby Smart has some teaching points. Now Alabama's got the onus on them as being number 1, and Kirby can now say, well, everybody thinks you sucked. Everybody thinks you're exposed. So what are you going to do now? You're going to step up? Last year's team, they didn't get down. Last year's team won a national championship. What about you guys? And it's so perfect for a coach to have that adversity. But I got to get out of here because it's 12:54. So myfootballcamps.com/D1. We would love to help you. We'd love to have you part of the family, and the client list is growing. DM us on Twitter. You're what? At Coach Schuman?
There it is, at Coach Schuman.
And I'm at M Farrell Sports. DM us, tweet at us, TikTok us, Instagram us, whatever. Let us know you're interested, and we'll tell you all about it and have someone get in touch with you.
Till next week. We'll see you then. Mike, I'll see you later. Have a great day, man.
You too. See ya.